You've probably memorized in school the fact that a circle is 360 degrees. Did you ever stop and think to ask what that meant exactly? It seems really obvious. Hey, 360, that's a 360, right? But why is it 360 in particular? Okay, so I'm a math grad, and it even messed me up. Let's start with our notion of what the angles in a shape. Little tiny things in the corner of that shape are actually doing. Well, we have a triangle. The triangle is 180 degrees. Then you go into a square. That's 360. So keep going. A pentagon, all right, 5 sides, is 540 degrees. And then blah, 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 6 sides, 7 sides, 8 sides, whatever. Well, what's one thing that's going on here? The degrees are increasing, right? You start off with a triangle. Then you get a square. Then you get a pentagon, right? Then an octagon, and then it gets rounder. The rounder the shape becomes, the more degrees you get, right? So why, whenever you blow this thing up, stack on like all these sides to the shape, you think that eventually you just go to infinity, you're gonna get a circle. So wouldn't that make the number super big for the angle? Well, you blow up, and then you end up with 360 degrees for the circle. Stop and think for a moment why you think that might be. But don't pause it, because that will kill the engagement statistically. Now, we'll proceed. Okay, so we're gonna imagine that we are in a square room, right? And, every single one of these turns on a square is 90 degrees. A square has 360 degrees total. 90, 90, 90, 90, 360. So we're walking. Let's say we start right here. We're turning. Okay, we get a 90 degree. Okay, we get another plus 90, plus 90, plus 90. Okay, cool. And that gives us our 360, right? Now I want you to pretend that instead of a square room, we're in a star-shaped room, and that's the center right there. All right. So we're gonna start right here. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Let's just say this is 60. We turn 60. We're turning, right? All right. We hit this piece right here where it tucks in. Well, we turned this way, and now we're turning this way. All right. Whatever. We don't know what we really get there. Turn again, blah, 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 right? And we keep going. So this is the part right here that's going to be the key to solving our circle conundrum. It feels like it shouldn't really add to that total thing. What are you going to add? An outside angle now? Well, that's a good intuition. It turns out that when you add up all those outside angles, it doesn't matter what shape it actually is, granted, if it doesn't loop back into itself. Here's a quick example. Granted, without that one exception, and even then, it just has double what I'm about to say. So, that outside angle adds up to being 360 degrees. Okay, that's really strange, right? It doesn't matter. We see these shapes that blow up with huge amounts of inner angles, yet the outside always remains 360 degrees. Okay, that's kind of odd. So is it forcing? Is it as the inside gets bigger, it's forcing it to 360? Well, no. We have the triangle that's 180 degrees, and on the inside and on the outside it's 360 degrees. We have the octagon, which is 1,080 degrees, and outside is 360 degrees. Those turns are just more steep and then slider, but more numerous later on. Super tiny, 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 but they add up to 360. Okay, so it's more about it being more numerous, but they all end up with 360 degrees. Now, we think what is a degree exactly? A degree can really only exist when there's two lines and there's some kind of span in between them, right? And a circle is actually transcended our little notion of two straight lines intersecting, giving us that. So if it's transcended that, why can the outside be added up into 360 degrees? 360 is not a statement of the static principles of a shape. It's actually about turning around a shape. So if you walk around something, now going into yourself a bunch of time, you're going to have it add up to 360 degrees, right? So the 360 degrees isn't a static property of a shape. You don't look at a shape and say, oh, that 360 degrees is owned by the shape. It's actually a property of being in two dimensions. So it turns out the angles aren't owned by the shape. Actually, every shape is dictated to be 360 degrees by the sheer fact that it exists on a two-dimensional plane. And if you stick it on there, 360 degrees is what it takes to encircle something. To encircle something is the simplest way to go around anything. And it turns out we all knew that because, and that's the paradox resolved that we had in our minds between knowing a circle feels 360 degrees, and yet our only explanation was it had to have a huge amount of degrees on it.